Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel, MD, General Physician. I'm not a cardiologist. Today we'll be discussing on one of the another interesting topic which is very frequently asked to you in your exams as well as in your oral, etc. We are going to discuss regarding aortic stenosis. The meaning is very simple. It is an involvement of an aortic valve where the opening of the aortic valve lumen becomes small, then we call that as aortic stenosis. So by definition, it is obstruction to the outflow from left ventricle at or near aortic valve that causes systolic pressure gradient more than 10 millimeter of mercury. To make it more simplified, during ventricular systole, if the opening of the aortic valve lumen becomes one-third of the original size, that is less than 1.5 square centimeter, it is called aortic stenosis. It can be congenital, it can be acquired. 7% of congenital heart disease are having aortic stenosis, and which is very frequently bicuspid valve aortic stenosis. So you can use different terminology like etiology wise, congenital or acquired, severity wise, mild, moderate and severe. If valvular structure is involved, then it is called valvular aortic stenosis. If the opening part of the aorta is involved, we call subvalvular or infravalvular. And if it is above the valve where the aorta portion is being narrowed, we call supravalvular. Classical example is coarctation. This is a diagram which is showing you normal tricuspid valve. This is a tricuspid valve, normal aortic. Three cusp, that's why it is called tricuspid. This is two cups only, so this is called bicuspid aortic valve. This is typical bicuspid aortic valve. And this is a single, this is called unicuspid. This is absolutely rare, but this is one of the congenital valvular which can be stenosis or can be incompetence also. These are different types of, this is tricuspid valve, this is when there is an opening. While opening, if it is opening lumen becomes small, less than one-third of the original size, then we call that as a stenosis. And you can see this is a destroyed valve. This is again a destroyed valve. So this is stenotic. This is stenotic. So these are the different types of valves which you can be involved. Most common variety is a valvular involvement. If outflow tract is involved, that is called subaortic or infravalvular or subvalvular. And the classical example of that is idiopathic hypertrophic subaortic stenosis, IHSS, or also called as a hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy called HOCM. So these are the two common terms which are being utilized for subvalvular or subaortic or infravalvular. Supravalvular is usually in the ascending aorta, and it is the least common variety where you get narrowing of the aorta producing an identical like aortic stenosis. Very commonly the term utilized is coarctation of aorta. Depending upon the opening diameter or opening area, we call, in mild the opening area is more than 1.5, in moderate between 1 to 1.5 square centimeter, and in severe it is less than 1 but more than 0.75, and if it is less than 0.75 square centimeter, it is called critical, severe, critical. And if you measure the pressure gradient across the valve, If it is less than 25, it is called mild. Between 25 to 50, it is called moderate. More than 50, it is called severe. And more than 75, it is called as critical. This is the common which is being utilized for mentioning the severity of aortic valvular stenosis. These are the other way they classify into stage A, B, C. Then C is further classified into C1, C2 and D, etc. This was by AHA and ACC in 2014. If you are interested, you can go through your at leisure time. It is divided by valve anatomy, hemodynamics and symptoms. So it is divided into at risk, progressive, in an asymptomatic variety, asymptomatic severe aortic stenosis, asymptomatic severe aortic stenosis with LV dysfunctions, then symptomatic with severe high gradient, symptomatic with low flow, low gradient, and symptomatic with severe low gradient. These are all the different terminology which are being utilized. If you are interested, you can go through. Usually we mention severe, mild, moderate, severe and critical. Now if you go through the etiology, one of the etiology is congenital. These are all acquired. In a congenital, usually it is a bicuspid valve. It may be pure isolated aortic stenosis because of aortic valve which is being abnormal, and it is put into what we call as an obstructive congenital heart disease. It is usually a mild variety, very rarely it is a severe variety. In another congenital variety, you come across what we call as a idiopathic hypertrophic subaortic stenosis, or we call hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy. These are the two terms which are being utilized, and that will produce outflow tract obstruction, or we also use the word subvalvular or infravalvular. These are the two common congenital variety which can produce aortic stenosis. While acquired group, the most common group is atherosclerosis, which is very frequently in old age, secondary due to atherosclerosis, and it also associated with isolated systolic hypertension. Second common is rheumatic, which is always with mitral valve involvement, and it is a chronic complication of rheumatic heart disease. So usually aortic stenosis is with mitral stenosis or mitral regurgitation. These are the two common acquired variety. You can have another which is called degenerative variety, very rarely in rheumatoid arthritis. In a congenital variety, it can be pure isolated, or good number of time it is associated with other disorders, other congenital heart disease may be associated with those particular groups. So these are the common etiology which you come across. If the person is under the age of 70, 50% of the time it is congenital. And if the person is over the age of 70, 50% of the time it is degenerative, or we call as atherosclerotic. So in a congenital aortic stenosis, usually it can be unicuspid, bicuspid or tricuspid valve. Most common being bicuspid variety. Aortic coarctation, dissection and aneurysms may be associated with aortic stenosis. So these are associated conditions like coarctation, dissection or dissecting aorta, dissection of aorta. Among acquired variety, we have already told you degenerative and calcification. Very frequently it is because of atherosclerosis, and there may be associated isolated systolic hypertension, coronary artery disease, etc. Rheumatic fever is another condition, and rare we already mentioned rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, Paget disease. infective endocarditis, etc. can be there. So this is congenital group, this is acquired group. So less than 70, bicuspid 50% of the time, post-inflammatory, that is rheumatic heart disease, degenerative groups. But older person, you can see the degenerative group becomes bigger. It is almost in 48%, here it is 18%. And bicuspid valve incidence will be 27, here it is 50%. So less number of incidents. Younger the individual, more chance of bicuspid. Older the individual, more chance of degenerative, and very rarely post-inflammatory, not common. So if you go according to the age, less than 30 congenital, between 30 to 50 chances of bicuspid is more common, between 30 to 60 rheumatic, and more than 60, some people say more than 70, degenerative group. So this is infants, younger children, and middle-aged groups. Supravalvular is good number of time called Williams syndrome. We already told you infravalvular or subvalvular, or even we call as a infundibular or outlet obstruction like HOCM, hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy, or idiopathic hypertrophic subaortic stenosis. And valvular variety can be congenital or acquired. And among acquired, it is rheumatic, and second is degenerative or we call atherosclerotic. And congenital is very commonly bicuspid aortic valve rather than tricuspid or unicuspid. So supravalvular, subvalvular, and valvular. Pathophysiology wise, depending upon the severity and depending upon the onset, by and large, aortic stenosis are all chronic or we call gradual onset. In congenital variety, it is usually mild. Very rarely you come across a very severe variety in congenital, very, very rare. But in acquired, after a gradual onset, you can go into a stage where the opening becomes less than 0.75 square centimeter. We call that as a severe variety. In that particular variety, you can get severe symptoms and signs. So this is a diagram showing you a normal valve, absolutely thin, papery, and transparent. And you can see this is involved valve because of different disease. This is a degenerative or we call atherosclerotic disorders. Now what is happening is, this is the pathophysiology which are explaining that because of aortic stenosis, depending upon the severity and onset, by and large all are chronic, majority of them are chronic, very rarely they are acute, absolutely rare in acute variety. So in a mild variety, there will be obstruction to the outflow of left ventricle. Because of that obstruction, left ventricle has to do more work. There is a preload, there is an afterload, and because of an increased afterload, left ventricle has to do more work. And while doing that more work, left ventricle undergoes hypertrophy. This is more of pure ventricular hypertrophy. Because of increased muscle mass, there is increased demand of oxygen. Because of obstruction, there is a decreased cardiac output. Because of decreased cardiac output, there is a decreased coronary blood flow. So coronary blood flow is decreasing because of decreased cardiac output, and because of increased muscle mass, left ventricular hypertrophy, there is increased demand. So there is a disparity between supply and demand, and that leads to what we call as an ischemic pain, we call anginal pain. Because of decreased cardiac output, less blood supply to brain, person can get syncopal episodes. Because of decreased cardiac output, there is a decreased perfusion of peripheral structures which can give rise to what we call as leg cramps, weakness, fatigue, etc. Now, as the left ventricle is undergoing hypertrophy, it tries to compensate. Left ventricular and diastolic volume will remain normal, but systolic volume will increase because of obstruction. Less blood is ejected out, and that will give rise to even hypertrophy with little amount of dilatation. This will give rise to increase in left ventricular pressure. That will elevate left atrial pressure. Because of elevation of left atrial pressure, there will be increase in pulmonary venous pressure, pulmonary hypertension. Secondary to pulmonary hypertension, now right ventricle has to do more work. Right ventricle will now start getting increase after load because of pulmonary hypertension. Right ventricle will also start undergoing hypertrophy. RV pressure will be elevated. RA pressure will be elevated. Pressure in superior vena cava and inferior vena cava will be elevated, and you will develop right ventricular failure symptoms and signs. So usually in a mild variety, the left ventricle will try to compensate it and will end up with pulmonary hypertension. Secondary to that, right ventricular pressure elevation, RA pressure elevation, and symptom signs of congestive cardiac failure, or we call as a right ventricular failure. And this is classical in case of chronic aortic stenosis. If severity becomes more, then left ventricle will be able to eject a very less quantity of blood. Because it is able to eject very less quantity, the peripheral perfusion is markedly reduced. Blood supply to coronary artery is also reduced. And because of that, now you will start getting ischemic pains and myocardial ischemia, damage to myocardium, and it will give rise to diastolic as well as systolic dysfunction. So, secondary to this, you will have atrial fibrillation. Now, as the ventricle is dilated, there is a mitral regurgitation, and person may even develop left ventricular failure signs. So, now person can have left ventricle failure with right ventricular failure also, and that we call as a congestive heart failure. This will happen if there is a very tight aortic stenosis and at the end stage of aortic stenosis. This is common. So aortic stenosis will give rise to left ventricle outflow obstruction. Systolic pressure is elevated. LV diastolic pressure is also elevated, systolic as well as diastolic pressure. But there is a decrease in aortic pressure because there is decreased cardiac output. LV mass is increased. Because of LV mass, you will start getting LV dysfunction. Increase in oxygen demand. Decrease in cardiac output. So because of increased oxygen demand, myocardial ischemia, and that can end up with left ventricular failure. Because of decreased cardiac output, decreased oxygen supply to coronary artery, myocardial ischemia, and that can also end with left ventricular failure. Secondary to left ventricular failure, again cardiac output is further reduced. It will further aggravate myocardial ischemia. And because of LV dysfunction, also there will be LV failure chances will increase. And myocardial ischemia can end up with LV dysfunction. So all this is a vicious cycle. And that will end up into what we call as left ventricular failure, secondary due to usually more common with severe, mild and severe variety of aortic stenosis. So stiffening of the aortic valve, left ventricular hypertrophy, compression of the coronary artery, decreased oxygen supply. Because of hypertrophy of left ventricle, increased myocardial oxygen demand. So demand is more, supply is less, myocardial ischemia, decreased cardiac output, incomplete emptying of the left atrium, pulmonary congestion, and right-sided heart failure. We already mentioned regarding all this that pressure gradient wise, mild, moderate, severe, and critical. And area wise, we have already told you that if it becomes less than 0.75, then it becomes critical. Critical. So depending upon the diameter, or we call as the area, you can call mild, moderate, and severe. More than 1.5, mild, moderate, between 1 to 1.5, and severe less than 1, and critical less than 0.75. As the symptoms, three cardinal symptoms, angina, syncope, and failure. If these three symptoms starts, you can see there is a downhill course. So the average survival becomes less and less. If angina, the survival is 4 to 5. If the person is having a syncopal episode, 4 years. And once the person develops an left ventricular failure, the survival rate becomes only 2 years. So it decreases as you start getting a symptoms like angina, syncope, and failure. As far as the clinical symptoms is concerned, the most common in a very mild variety, they are absolutely asymptomatic, and they may be symptomatic on exertion, extreme exertion. Classical three common symptoms, syncopes, angina, and symptom signs of failure. Once the person gets a syncopal episode on exertion, the prognosis is poor. The lifespan becomes less. Because of increased demand and decreased supply, there is a mismatch, and that gives rise to anginal pain, or we call ischemic pain. And LV dysfunction will give rise to dyspnea on exertion. Because of LV hypertrophy, palpitation, and sometimes person can have even sudden cardiac death. We have already told you that mild are usually asymptomatic. Only on extreme exertion may be complaining of fatigue. Moderate, very frequently classical three symptoms, that is chest pain, syncope, and symptom signs of failure. And a very severe variety usually will present with a left side heart failure and may even have sudden cardiac death. We already mentioned three cardinal symptoms, that is angina, syncope, and symptom signs of failure. So symptom signs of failure, fatigue, exertional dyspnea, which is due to decreased cardiac output and pulmonary congestion. Chest pain, we already explained you because of increased demand and decreased supply, mismatch. Exertional dyspnea is because of decreased cardiac output, and even person gets exertional syncopal episodes. Sometimes they also complain of dizziness or vertigo. Weakness, orthopnea, PND, pulmonary edema symptoms and signs will be present in a severe variety. Right-sided failure is usually very common in a mild variety rather than a tight aortic stenosis. If untreated, yes, can end up into right-sided heart failure. On auscultation, we'll be mentioning further what you get in a cardiovascular system examination. So, typical symptoms, we have told you angina, syncope, and failure. If angina is a symptoms, 5 years survival. Syncope, survival becomes less, 3 years. And once the person develops congestive heart failure, survival rate is usually less than 2 years. We already mentioned regarding all the symptoms, physical finding. In physical finding, pulse will be low volume. It is also called as a slow rising pulse or anacrotic pulse or pulsus tardus and pulsus tardus. Systolic pressure is reduced, diastolic pressure is elevated, so pulse pressure is very, very narrow. On palpation, there is a forceful apex. It is more commonly seen in a just outside the midclavicular line, mild LVH. There is a ejection systolic murmur, crescendo, decrescendo murmur. Bass heard in a aortic area may be associated, usually depending upon the severity. It can be right from grade 3 to grade 5. Second heart sound will be soft, sometime may not be audible. We'll be talking about ECG further. So pulse will be low volume, we call it an anacrotic pulse or pulsus parvus et tardus. Systolic blood pressure is low, is decreased, and diastolic pressure is elevated, so pulse pressure is markedly narrow. Usually temperature is normal. Person can have tachypnea secondary due to congestive heart failure. We already mentioned murmur will be bass heard in aortic area. It is a ejection systolic murmur, crescendo, decrescendo murmur. Grade is between 3 to 6. Better heard on right carotid as compared to left carotid. There will be no change in the murmur on respiration, Valsalva, or any change in the position. So this is a typical murmur. This is in a mild variety, and this is in a severe variety. You get that. And S2 sound will become softer or may not be heard also. This is a mild difference. You can go through your at leisure time between mild, moderate, and severe variety. We have already told you in a severe variety you will get a pulsus parvus et tardus. Apical impulse will be mainly forceful, and once it starts getting dilatation because of severe aortic stenosis, then you can have a heaving apex beat. On auscultation you can get a S4 in severe variety. The systolic click will not be heard in a severe variety, it is better heard in a mild variety. Systolic click will be followed by a murmur. This will be more of a early systolic murmur in a mild, and in a severe variety it will be mid to late systolic murmur. S2 sound will be almost absent in case of a severe variety. So this is that same difference further. JVP, carotid thrill, etc. is explained. In a severe variety, carotid thrill will be present, and precordial thread will be also present in case of a severe variety. So at your leisure time you can go through. We already mentioned that when you do echo with Doppler, you can find out the severity and you can put them into mild, moderate, severe, and critical. And by using a pressure gradient across the aortic valve, also you can put them into mild, moderate, severe, and critical variety. This is the difference between valvular, supravalvular, discrete subvalvular, and hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy, which is a subvalvular variety. This is a subvalvular variety. So this is the difference. If you are interested, you can go through your leisure time. I have put this particular slide. In investigation on an X-ray chest, usually you will see a mild left ventricular hypertrophy. Very rarely you get a huge cardiomegaly. It is very frequently if the person has got AS with AR, and if the person has got tight aortic stenosis, it is mildly enlarged. There is an enlargement with dilatation. So there is a hypertrophy with dilatation in a very, very tight aortic stenosis. In a mild variety, you will get even a RVH. In a tight variety, you will get more of a left ventricular failure signs in the form of a pulmonary congestions, curly A line, curly B line. In old person, you can get an aortic valve calcification, which can be seen good number of times. You can get an aortic calcification also, aortic valve calcification as well as aortic arch of aorta you can see, and calcification or aortic knuckle calcification you can see. In an ECG you will see severe LVH with strain, more common in a tight aortic stenosis rather than a mild variety. Very rarely you get a cardiac arrhythmia like a ventricular premature Vicks. In echocardiography, you can identify the severity of the ventricular hypertrophy, dilatation, and systolic volume, left ventricular and diastolic pressure, systolic pressure. You can also identify bicuspid, tricuspid, or unicuspid. You can also find out whether it is supravalvular, valvular, or subvalvular, or we call outflow tract obstruction. You can also detect infective endocarditis, thrombus formation, etc. Stress testing is done only when you are planning for surgery. Cardiac catheterization is also done when you are planning for surgery and you want to find out the severity of coronary artery disease involvement along with aortic stenosis and other associated conditions. So ECG will show you left ventricular hypertrophy with strain pattern and sometimes you get left bundle branch block. X-ray chest, we already told you, LV enlargement with dilatation of ascending aorta, calcification of the valve or calcification of aorta you can see. In an echo, you can identify all the different types of aortic valve, whether bicuspid, unicuspid, tricuspid valve, calcified valve or not. And you can identify severity of hypertrophy, dilatation, and diastolic volume, etc. And Doppler will give you all those idea. Pressure gradients you can identify, and cardiac catheterization will give you all those idea and further detail regarding coronary artery also. This is showing you a very good. You can see that a dotted line is dilated aorta. So this is a dilated aorta, and this is LV. This is LV. You can see this is a dilated part, this is a dilated part, and this is a descending aorta. This is LV, and this is a ascending aorta which is little dilated, and this is showing you a aortic valve area, calcified valve. This is severe LVH with ST segment downsloping, so showing you ischemia, severe LVH with ischemic changes. Again, you can see a severe LVH and ischemic changes. As far as differential diagnosis is concerned, usually we don't require any differential diagnosis for aortic stenosis, but you will have to identify whether it is congenital required, and in congenital whether it is bicuspid, whether it is mild, whether it is isolated, or whether it is with other congenital anomaly, and among acquired atherosclerotic or rheumatic or IHSS is not ideally acquired, but it is mainly congenital, so that you can identify very easily by doing an echo. As far as management is concerned, almost in all you require infective endocarditis prophylaxis. If person has not gone in failure, you might go for a medical therapy, mainly in the form of to increase the perfusion to coronary artery and increase the cardiac output. Vasodilators are contraindicated because it will further decrease the cardiac output. So peripheral vasodilators should not be utilized. Aortic balloon valvoplasty is the most common therapy which is now being utilized, and it is a procedure in which you can introduce a catheter, you do a balloon valvoplasty, and person gets good results. Along with that, you can use what we call as a transaortic valve replacement. Transaortic valve replacement. This is the transaortic valve replacement. And you can put a stent with a valve. So you've got a medical therapy, you've got a surgical therapy, you've got a valvuloplasty, and you can go for aortic valve replacement. So in a medical therapy, by and large, it is a conservative treatment, avoid overexertion, antibiotic prophylaxis and regular follow-up, etc. should be done in an asymptomatic patient. But if the person becomes symptomatic, you will have to decide regarding a conservative line or go for aortic valve replacement, balloon valvoplasty. Now, this majority of these procedures are transcatheter procedures, and transaortic valve replacement is also called as a TAVI, transaortic valve implant, that is TAVI, or it is called also TAVR. So, transaortic valve replacement. Aortic valve replacement is called AVR, and transcatheter is called T. So, those are the different procedures which are being commonly done. So, in a severe aortic stenosis, either you go for a TAVI or you go for what we call as a AVR. So, those are called aortic valve replacement. And when it is done transcatheter, it is called transcatheter aortic valve replacement or aortic valve implant. And that is with what we call as a stent having a valvular structure inside. So, those are the conditions and those are the things. Now, the days of total aortic valve replacement are gone. Only in case of if it is associated with an aortic root abnormality, in that case they go for an open surgery. So these are all the indications of aortic valve replacement in aortic stenosis, class 1 and class 2 indications. You can go through your at leisure time. This will be very frequently required in a person who are symptomatic like angina, syncopal episodes, or person has gone into acute left ventricular failure. So these are class 1, class 2A, class 2B, class 3 indications. As far as complication is concerned, person can develop acute or severe left ventricular failure. By and large, the acute are not common. In a mild variety, they go into a right side failure very commonly. We call it as a right ventricular failure. But along with that, person can have a left ventricular dysfunction, then we call that as a congestive heart failure. If it is a severe valvular stenosis, you can get syncopal episodes, angina, and left ventricular failure. Infective endocarditis is quite common, and it can end up with thromboembolism. Ventricular cardiac arrhythmias are common, and that can end up into sudden cardiac death. So these are the common complications which you can see in an aortic stenosis. So I end my lecture here. I hope this will be helpful to you. We'll go through a second valvular heart disease in the next lecture.